the Tory party, in my view, is likely possibly to tack right. It might not. It might realise that's a cliche and only go part of the way to it. But there'll certainly be a battle for its soul that will take place. Meanwhile, the Labour Party, all the problems that the Tory party have, immigration, inflation, the relationship with the European Union, the Labour Party is just about to get exactly those problems in government. An awful lot in politics depends on quite a narrow thing, which is who wins the leadership. And actually that's a little bit difficult to predict. There's no one faction of the party that has a standout candidate. And that is important in terms of determining who wins. And I think in which direction the party will go to. And the recent experience of choosing Liz Truss because she was the candidate of the right, but turned out not to be good enough to hold the post, which people on the right had slightly suspected before they appointed her, right? She's, I think, actually quite an intelligent person, but she's not capable of that. That wasn't capable of that job, and therefore they kind of slightly suspected, elected her anyway because she was the right-wing candidate, and then it was a disaster. And I think they'll be quite leery about doing that again. So there are quite a few dynamics. It's a little bit more difficult to predict than it seems. So on the surface of it, you think, well, what happened before will happen. The Conservative Party will decide that it lost because Rishi Sunak put up taxes and wasn't right-wing enough. And there'll certainly be a strong element of that again. But it has to unite behind an appropriate candidate. Yeah. Leadership is so important in setting the direction of the party will go on after that. I must say, I think James Cleverly is a very, very likely person to emerge. Because, one possibility is it doesn't split in the way that you do, but you get somebody come through the middle and everybody goes behind them. Although whether that's really him. So, I think it's extremely open without any one obvious person and without any obvious direction. But I think you then get James Cleverly, I think, would lead the party a little bit possibly in the way that William Hague did after the 1997 defeat, if it was big enough. The other thing that might happen is if the Conservative Party's defeat is big enough, no one wants to hear from the Conservative Party at that point. I remember because I worked for William Hague, thinking this guy is really excellent. He'd be a very good Prime Minister, but nobody could conceive of him. And I think that's obvious now. I don't think people could conceive of him as being Prime Minister because the Conservative Party was so far behind, no one was interested in him. Yeah. So, Henry's right, a lot depends on the size of the defeat. In other words, what we're saying is that in answering this question, there are too many variables. I think it's very, very likely we're going to have a Labour government within the next 18 months. And as a result of that, you'll probably get a change of Tory leadership. The Tory party, in my view, is likely possibly to tack right. It might not. It might realise that's a cliche and only go part of the way to it. But there'll certainly be a battle for its soul that will take place. Meanwhile, the Labour Party, all the problems that the Tory party have, immigration, inflation, the relationship with the European Union, the Labour Party is just about to get exactly those problems in government. So it's not too difficult to see 3 to 4 years ahead, I think.